Welcome back. Today, we're going to give you a blueprint, a guide to understanding why governments get involved in the economy, and more importantly, how you can tell if their big plans are actually built to last or if they're just, destined to fall apart. Let's get into it.
You see this all the time, right? The government announces some huge new project, a new factory, a high-speed rail line, and it sounds great. Progress, jobs. But how do we really know if it's a solid plan or just a flashy political promise? To figure that out, we need a better way to look at these decisions.
So, first things first, let's get on the same page. When we say state intervention, we're not just talking about setting the basic rules of the road. We're talking about when the government actively steps into the market to steer it, to pick winners, to fund certain projects, and to really shape entire industries.
And here's the cool part. You don't need a PhD in economics to figure this stuff out. Nope, you just need the right framework. So today, we're going to hand you a 5-question diagnostic toolkit. Think of it as a blueprint you can use to analyze any government plan and see what it's really made of.
So, what's the very first question in our toolkit? Well, it's probably the most fundamental one of all. Does the government actually have the ability, the capability to pull this off?
So here's the crucial difference. Is the state competent? Meaning, does it have the skilled people, the efficient systems, the technical know-how to actually execute a complex plan? Or is it merely interventionist, really good at making big announcements and holding press conferences, but doesn't have the deep-down ability to follow through? One builds things, the other just talks about building things.
Okay, next up in our toolkit, we have to look at the players who are already on the field, especially the ones owned by the state. What is the real size and impact of the government's economic footprint?
When you look at these big state-owned enterprises, or SOEs, you've got to ask some tough questions. Are they actually efficient companies? Or are they kind of bloated, losing money and being propped up by taxpayers? Are they being used to give jobs and contracts to political buddies? And maybe the most important question, is their sheer size making it impossible for smaller, more innovative private companies to even compete?
And this chart right here, wow, it just nails that last point perfectly. This shows you exactly what crowding out looks like. That massive 75% chunk of the pie, that's the state-owned giant. And those tiny little slivers, those are the small and medium businesses. I mean, how can they possibly innovate and grow when one government-backed player just dominates the entire market?
This brings us to our third question, which is all about stability. Is there a real, coherent, long-term plan here? Or is economic policy just getting tossed around by short-term politics? I mean, this timeline tells a story that is just way too common. A government launches a big, ambitious plan. A couple of years go by, priorities shift, then bam, an election happens, and the new folks in charge scrap the whole thing to launch their own big plan. In that kind of environment, investors get nervous, money stays on the sidelines, and real progress just stalls out.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? For an economy to really grow, you need some predictability. Business owners and investors need to know that the rules of the game aren't going to be ripped up from under them every few years. Without that stability, you don't get progress. You just get chaos.
Our fourth question is where we really start to follow the money. See, when a government intervenes, it creates these valuable economic prizes, things like subsidies or contracts or exclusive rights to do something. The big question we have to ask is, who actually gets to collect these prizes?
And these are the main ways those prizes get handed out. Subsidies get funneled to specific companies. Exclusive licenses are given out to operate in a certain market. You've got these huge government concessions, like the right to build a new airport. And of course, procurement, those massive contracts to supply the government with everything it needs. The key thing to ask is, are these prizes being awarded based on who's best for the job or who has the best political connections?
And that leads us straight into our final and maybe most revealing question. Governments always justify handing out these prizes by saying they need to protect strategic sectors. Our job, using this toolkit, is to ask, what does strategic really mean in this case? Think of this table as your decoder ring. The official reason might be something like national security, which sounds really important. But could the real motive be to help out a well-connected defense company? They might say it's all about protecting jobs, but is it really about securing votes in a specific region? Now, this isn't about being cynical. It's about being a sharp analyst. It's about looking past the public relations to understand the real interests at play.
So there you have it. That's the toolkit. Capability, the role of state-owned firms, policy stability, who gets the benefits, and the real meaning of strategic. Put them all together, and that is your complete blueprint for understanding state intervention.
So let's just recap that blueprint one last time. First, is the state actually capable of doing this? Second, what's the deal with state-owned companies? Third, is the policy stable or is it just chaos? Fourth, follow the money. Who really benefits? And finally, number 5, what does strategic truly mean? Ask those 5 questions and you'll see the real architecture of any government plan.
So now, the power is in your hands. You have the diagnostic tools. The next time you hear about some grand economic plan, run it through this 5-question blueprint. See for yourself what the architecture of state intervention really looks like where you live.